Guys, thank you
Boom.
so much for being here. Welcome to the Lead Gen Underground live. I wanted to get Dylan on today, my good buddy Dylan Tanaka. I'm pretty sure you guys here already know him. Dylan is in the Dirty D and has gone through several market cycles so far. Dylan, you've been in real estate investing for what, like 12, 13 years now, something like that?
I started in 03, so I'm hitting my 18th year.
Get out of town.
Yep, I'm an OG,
And so,
as they say.
so you pretty much had a decent run up to 08, and then 08 happens, and then we had a decent run back up, and now the whole COVID thing happens, right? So is it feeling kind of like a repeat of what you've seen before, or is it different this time?
So yeah, so here in Metro Detroit, or Detroit proper, we got smashed in actually like 06/07. So it was really bad for us for a lot of years. We didn't come back till about 2011. So I'm kind of used to figuring out how to do it from working from a disadvantage. And not that that's a good thing, but I wasn't going to leave Michigan. I wasn't leaving Detroit. This is where my family is. And it's where my whole network is, and like, the other thing for me was way back then, hardly anybody did virtual flipping, wholesaling, developing, building in areas 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 miles away from their house, unless you had a boots on the ground partner.
Right.
So I just kind of like dug in, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to figure this thing out and, try to make lemonade out of lemons.
So when prices are sinking that bad through any cycle, I think that's what people are kind of fearing now, that prices are going to dip back down. What's your play as a wholesaler or even as a flipper? Are you trying to get in and get out quicker? Or are you waiting to see where prices bottom out? Kind of what's your meta strategy here in the changing market?
So the hard part is just like in the stock world, because I think real estate, follows the equity markets. When things are sliding down, it's really hard to make money because you can't short real estate like we can short stocks. Like, here's a good tip. So Zoom, what we're on right now, is worth more than the 7 biggest airlines in our whole nation. That just tells you how weak that business is. But Zoom's going to crash really soon because COVID's almost over and everybody's going to cancel their accounts, the normal people, right? So you look at that and you go, okay, how do I take advantage of this? And in a down market, as it's sliding, it's hard. So I think, number one, you got to buy cheaper. You can't be afraid to basically be told no, which means you might be without some deals for a certain amount of time. I don't mean any deals, but you're going to do less as people come back to reality. The sellers who think their house is worth what Zillow says. I think you got to go for seller financing a lot. I think a lot of us are lazy. Just getting another headphone here. I think a lot of us are lazy and we don't go for seller financing on every single deal. And I do. I talked about this yesterday on Flip Nerd to some of the newer guys. And I was like, man, if you guys aren't asking every seller if they'll carry you, you're crazy, even if they take your cash price, because you never know how much that changes your deal, when they'll carry the financing. Because when I resell that as a wholesaler, I might be able to get 10 extra grand because they're going to carry the financing for 6 months, So I think you have to have a lot more weapons in your arsenal. And, for the guys and girls that we spend a lot of time with, a lot of them have started in the last 3 to 5 years. They never saw it bad, or they're in markets like Dallas where it never really got that bad. So to me, I think you just always have to be learning, and you always have to be like listening to what other people around you are saying who've been through the hard times. And especially now, like, we're lucky. So you're in Maryland, Nick is in New Jersey, Clark's in Florida. I don't know where Jeremy's from. Harkar's out in Vegas. Anil, he's in I'm going to say Cincinnati. I'm just kidding, Anil. I don't know you. But I'm saying, so we have the opportunity now, so different than 10 years ago, where I can hear what's going on in other areas. And like some of our Investor Fuel friends, during Investor Fuel last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, they were talking about that they're getting 30 and 40 and 50 showings a day as soon as COVID ended in some of their states. So it hasn't ended here. I don't think it's ended for you guys in Maryland either, because you guys were hit like we were, like we're just crazy, all the big cities. But to me, I think you just can't be afraid, but you have to be really smart. And this is going to teach all of us that we've got to be smarter all the time. Like, you can't be lucky all the time. The worst thing you can do is go to Vegas and hit for a $10,000 slot for a penny on your first pull, because you're going to think you're a genius. And you're just never going to practice. You know what I mean? Like, you're never going to learn. You're not going to be humble. And like, yeah, I joke around like I'm wearing a bright colored blazer and my hair looks funny. I got toys behind me. But, I study this business as much as I can, and I understand how the title side works. I understand how finance works, and I've become pretty decently rounded over the last 18 years because I wanted to have that menu of options for a deal, not the seller, but the opportunity, because we're not always going to buy from private sellers, right? Foreclosures will come back at some point in our life. We won't be able to buy from private sellers because there won't be equity. Then it'll bounce again like it did. So
So
I think
in terms of there's two things that you said that I want to dig into a little bit there. One is you said if you're not asking them to carry the note, meaning sellers, on every deal, you're crazy. So I'd like to dig in and talk about how you're doing that, because I think a lot of us know that creative financing is coming back, but maybe don't know how to approach it. And then the second thing is you said lean on some people who have been through cycles. Well, that's why you're here, and we want to dig in a little bit more there. But can you talk a little bit about the first part, how you bring that up, at what point, and what kind of relevant questions you're asking?
so. As always in sales, anything that is a hard thing to talk about, I think you should bring up early and often, right? That's just an old like Jim Rohn thing. So if I'm trying to sell you something, I actually want you to know the price right away. So like when I'm wholesaling a house, my price in the old days, I'd have it on a bandit sign, $49.99 or whatever, right in the yard, all cash only, no seller financing, must close in 7 days or something crazy, because I didn't want to talk to people who weren't serious. So you got to like reverse it. And in sales, I think, and in anywhere in business, but really when you deal with people, which that's what sales is, you got to put yourself in their shoes. So you don't want to sneak attack anybody, because you don't want them to be scared. A lot of the sellers we deal with, unless they're landlords or wholesalers, but let's just talk about a normal private seller. Why are they calling us? There's some kind of life thing going on. So they can be scared. They can be coiled up like a snake in the corner. And you don't want them to feel that way. You want to make them super duper comfortable. We all practice John Martinez sales training. We understand how important it is to take the pressure off of them. So you want to be able to take the pressure off of them in every single way. Like when you explain how your contract works. I know guys who can't explain their purchase agreement. And I think that's kind of foolish, because I go through every single line so that when somebody like Josh, who's 20, comes behind me and is like, yeah, I'll pay you 10 grand more. What does this mean? I don't know, but don't worry, dude, I'll pay you. Where I'm explaining to them what line 10 means is that if I don't close, this is the money that you get. Or if I don't close, this happens. Or when we do close, this is how this closes. So I think you have to be able to explain everything to a T to your seller. And what I'll usually ask them is, I don't ask them if they want to sell on land contract. I don't want to ask them if they'll do agreements for deeds, none of that jargon. I just say, so if I'm going to try to buy a house for 50,000, let's say, I'll say, I can probably pay the 50,000, but I might be able to pay a little bit more, if you were willing to look at something a little bit more creative. And if they go, what do you mean? That's like my foot in the door, right? I'm like, well, a lot of times, because I sell by telling a story. A lot of times when I buy houses from people like you, Josh, I know that you're not in like financial distress. You don't need the money tomorrow. You said you were going to, buy stocks with it, or you just pay down equity or whatever in your personal home. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put together a, some type of an arrangement where I'll pay you over time, and you're going to actually make more money on the same asset that you've had here anyways as a rental property, except you're not counting on that crappy tenant. You're counting on a guy who's got a lot of skin in the game. And does it work all the time? Of course not, but maybe 10% of the time. And they're like, what do you mean? Right. So then I just keep bringing them toward me. And I've never paid ever more than 5% on seller financing. And a lot of times I'm not paying them anything, because it's a straight, you have to put an interest rate on the mortgage, because if you don't, it's illusory. But usually I'll do an installment sale, or I'll figure it out so that I'm really not paying any interest. And it's just like, here's what you're getting. So we get free private money that way, which is great because it loosens up our private money. And again, when you go to sell it, it's more of an exciting asset to some people. But I think this is something you have to practice. And you guys know I'm a pretty good talker, or I think I am, right? So I talk a lot. But you have to be able to, you have to practice in front of a mirror. You should be recording yourself. And if you try it on the sellers who you're not going to be able to buy from anyways, who cares? Get a no, get punched in the face, whatever. Don't practice on your business partner or your wife, because they're going to be easy on you. Get up in front of the room, add investor fuel, and say, hey, I want to do role playing. I'll do that because I've always done it. But you go to John Martinez's seminar, I was the guy running to the front to go and do role playing with him and Greg. And most people were shrinking back because they were nervous. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying that I'm not afraid, because what does it matter anyways? If it's a no, it's a no. So to me, I think you have to know your numbers kind of quickly. You have to be able to explain to the seller how it would work. And, I would pay you every month, or this is how it works, whatever they ask for, right? So how do you want it, Josh? You're like, I don't want to put checks in the bank every month. That's fine. We can do an ACS or ACH. Like, I don't even want to account for it like that. Can I just get all my money at the end? Sure. Or I want bi-monthly payments. Sure. I want bi-weekly payments. Sure. So,
got it.
your question, Clark.
Go ahead. You can answer that if you want.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
yeah. Can you see what I'm saying? Because like, I like your storytelling because when you say, hey, I'll give you 5% interest, it's hard for them to compute. And then each month it changes.
Yeah.
Would it be better to say, look, I'll give you 55,000 instead of 50. And I'll also just give you $50 a month as like free cash for you. So it'll just pay it down the 500 increments. And then you just get a $50 override on it. So they can like clearly see that.
Yeah. So my attorney, who's here in Michigan, different than your guys' attorney, and none of us are attorneys that I know of. He always says you shouldn't do less than 3%, because then a court will look at that and say that that's real. So I don't care if I'm paying 3%. Most of the time I'm holding the money for 6 months. But yeah, I like the out the door idea for them.
Yeah.
You don't want them to overthink it. So I'm just like, Clark, what, you got money because you're 80 at this point. Like, what, you got a little bit of money in the bank on a CD. What are you getting on that? You're like, 1.5%. I'm like, what if I could triple that for you on the same asset that you've always had? And I don't leave the mortgage. I don't leave the deed in their name. I always take the deed and then just create a mortgage and a note to them, because if they croak or if they want to be jerks, you have to pull out your contract in court and show that you have the right to buy that house. I'm not doing that. Yeah. So I only do what we call a purchase money mortgage here in Michigan. I take the deed. Okay. Yeah. Even if they have a debt on it, I'll take it subject to the existing financing.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to ask. Let's talk about the technicals, because this is a really good conversation to get into about creative financing.
Yeah.
So applicable to where we're going. And let's talk about the technical aspects of how you're trying to acquire, with what kind of deal, and then what's your exit strategy on the back end. Are you still just wholesaling these? Are you buying and holding any of them, or selling the note? How's that go for you?
So some of them, basically all the above, but I don't usually sell notes. It's hard. And I'm just saying this because I'm probably lazy. It's hard to sell notes in Michigan because, they look at all of Michigan like Detroit, just like they look at all of Maryland like, what do you call it? Like Baltimore, right? Which isn't true, obviously. So I wholesaled 2 subject twos last year, told the seller exactly what was going on. They were both like, for us, just like a bread and butter lower end rental, but something you'd be into for say like 35,000 range, and you'd bring in like $850 a month with a $900 a year insurance bill. I mean, tax bill. So really good properties, not in the city of Detroit, right? So on those, I would go in there and let's say, and I didn't do it as my acquisition guy who'd never done subject to before. I taught him how to do it on the fly on the phone. I'm like, just tell him, hey, you owe too much money for us to buy this house, but here's what we would do. We would take over your mortgage. We're going to pay you off in 5 years or less, and we'll pay the mortgage for you. Because I found out a little bit of the mortgage info and, in the conversation, and the guy's like, well, how would that work? And again, like super simple, like keep the login to your bank. We're going to pay it, or we'll pay you, but it's going to be a check to the mortgage company. And if you're doing a lot of subject twos, or if you're doing a lot of land contracts, you want to use a mortgage servicing company, but I'm hardly doing any. So like I turned 2 deals last year into 15,000 total profit, but with both of them combined, because I knew how to do subject to and nobody else did. So everybody walked away from these deals, the other investors, because I wasn't the only guy in there. So they couldn't figure out how to do it. And I wholesaled them as subject twos, and my buyers paid probably $5,000 more than they should have for those houses, but it was free financing. So did they pay $5,000 more? Not really, because these mortgages were like 4.5% mortgages, ammed over 30 years. And they already had, say 5, 6, 7 years worth of pay down. So I think that's another great point, Josh, is you got to learn creative financing. Like go get some old books and tapes from guys, or take some new courses, but there's so much info on YouTube and on Facebook and from people like us. Subject to is not that hard. And that's just another awesome weapon that you have that a lot of other people just will never understand, because they're just trying to wholesale like, in the big groups that we see.
Definitely. Have you ever had a note called?
No, never. I've done probably 35 subject twos, 35 to 40 in my life, and only probably 6 or 7 in the last 3 years. But notes are typically never called due, because if you're paying them on time, they don't care who's paying them.
Sure.
You know?
Absolutely. All right. So another thing I wanted to really lean into you with is that in the past, I know that with a lot of RIAs, I know with a lot of your deals, you have gotten, you've either broken out the hustle or you've gotten creative with selling your deals. And I know that you've told me some ways that you have, sold deals that other people may not have thought about in the past. Share some of the secrets there on how we can go out and sell some of our own deals, because as I'm talking right now, I'm watching some deals melt off the board. Going to have to go find new buyers on a few. And it's a little bit tougher market right now.
Right.
How can we sell the deals for more or find better buyers?
So I think, like this is my shirt, the network, that's the name of our networking group, the RIA that I run. I've been running a RIA since 2006. And it is at times a labor of love, but I've pulled money out of that RIA. I've pulled buyers out of that RIA. I've pulled deals out of that RIA. And if you run a group, or you're just a big part of a group, you have a much better chance at basically just having a little bit of authority over the other people in your neighborhood, especially the new people. And like, I was just on a call for an hour before I got on this call with kind of like my second in command at my group. And we don't charge any money. We don't make money directly at the group. So anyone who does anything with us, they're just giving their own time. But when you give your own time and you're doing lives on, doing this kind of stuff, or we're doing podcasts, all kinds of fun stuff, people get to know you. And really, that's what it's all about. To me, like, building my network is what has built everything that I have, because it's how I found my private lenders. It's how I found my actual old partners back in the day. It's how I've bought big buildings. And what happens is, if you're not lying and you're running your group the right way, people are going to look to you and they're going to know that you're the person they can ask questions of. And if you don't have sharp teeth and you're not a shark, then a lot of times, just like when I sit with a seller, you guys have all done this, I'll help them way more than I should. There's no way I'm getting the deal. And I'm like, you'll probably not do a Google review for me because you're 80 years old and you don't have a smartphone. But one day something good will happen to me too, so it's like karma. And if you treat people right, eventually good things happen. So that's kind of how RIAs work. I don't do it for the coaching aspect, because it's not worth all the work to coach. Because in your own neighborhood, it's really hard to get expensive coaching students. Nobody wants to pay $500 or $1,000 a month. They want to pay you $250 and they want to talk to you 2 hours a day. It's not worth your time. But what I've been able to do is I've been able to build a lot of bird dogs, both ways. So buyers and sellers. Most times I sell my own stuff, but I get a lot of properties that way that are brought to me because these new people don't know what the heck's going on. And just checking the time for us. And they, so they come to me, and a lot of times I don't even take a piece of the deal. I just tell them what to do, or show them which way to go, hoping that when the big one comes, they're going to come to me. And a lot of them do. And I guess a way that one way you said, how do I sell stuff? So another trick way that I sell stuff that a lot of people don't use is I'm an agent also. I'm a broker, actually, which is like the biggest thing I've ever accomplished in life. But what I'll do is I'll get a house under contract. And if it's a $50,000 rehab, I can sell it in your neighborhood and you guys can sell it in my neighborhood, right? But if it's that rental, like I said, that you're only going to make $2,500 on, or $5,000 on, or $7,500 on a wholesale, if you're really lucky, and you get like subject to or seller financing, I will pull all of those cash buyers from the MLS. And some of you guys aren't licensed, but we all know licensed dudes. Pull all the cash buyers who sold houses like that. I'll send emails directly to them through like a GMass or something super plain, all clean. I don't even put a link in there. I don't put dollar signs in there. All I say is it'll be like, hey, Josh, you showed one of my houses before I was selling cash over in, Waterford or whatever. I've got a house at 1234 Main Street. It's off market. It's going to be this much, $65K. And, it's paying a $2,500 commission, but it's a contract assignment. If you don't understand what that means, don't call me. And then I hit send, and I'll send that out to 500 or 1,000 agents who have cash buyers or who've closed cash deals in that zip code or whatever, or within so many miles. And then I put the wrong address every time by like one digit. So anyone who's serious freaking calls me, and my phone does blow up for like 2 hours, but everyone I talk to, I'm like, bam, you got to get on my list. Bam, you got to get on my list. I'll get 30, 40 phone calls in 2 hours. And every single time I've had a problem property in the last 3 years, I've sold it that way. And a lot of times I am only going to make like that 5, like the worst one I did, I made like 3,500 on, but I never went there. My acquisitions guy did. So I'm not going to throw away 3,500 bucks. I sold it through an agent, took no work. He had a buyer from out of state I'll never have. And now I have that buyer, right? I know who that guy is. But that was a really good, like, just silly, weird system I came up with because I was licensed. And you don't even have to be licensed to do it. It just helped because I went after him as a realtor. And then when they answered me, you know, those 30 or 40 people, they're all guys who are just like us, but they do both, right? They do more agent work too.
Dude, I love that tip. I actually just started using GMass like last week, and I accidentally froze up my whole email.
You got to be super careful.
It was going out too quick or something like that. And the next day, I couldn't even respond back to emails because it told me I had like reached my limit or something. So I have to dial that back down. I love that idea, though. That is a super, super idea to go.
Yeah, you can't use free Gmail with GMass if you're going to send out too many. You got to use an your own domain.
Got it. I don't know what the issue was, other than maybe I tried to send too many too fast.
Right. I started with like 100 only, and over a year I built it up to like 500 in a day. But it works beautiful. And I don't even put a link in. I put nothing in there. It's super spam free because you know how bad the spam filters are now. Like Handbrite stuff, I always tell people this. It gets spammed out. I got them whitelisted. How did I even figure out how to do it in Gmail? He'll send me a personal email with nothing in there but an answer to something. Bam, spammed out. Really? Because Google wants us to like pay to even email people.
So are you even when you're sending out that kind of email, are you personalizing it at all?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm doing that. So when I rip it out of the MLS, right, I'm getting Josh, I'm getting Hines, I'm getting the street that you sold the house on. I'm like, yeah, we talked about a house on this street. They don't remember. They're like, oh yeah, what's up, Dylan? How are you? And like, there are a few more Dylans now around, right? So they're like, which Dylan is this? I'm like, the one that wants to sell your house, man. What's up? How many buyers you got going? Like, I just turn it into a sales call. But that's like on my problem properties. The sweet ones, you don't have to do that crap. But like where you play sometimes, like some of the stuff we have is a little grimy. So if we can eke out 3,500 or $5,000, that pays for our postcards for the month, right?
Gotcha, dude. Gotcha. Yeah, I love that idea. I've actually I'm not used the MLS to pull down realtors for cash buyers. I've used it to pull down their cell phones to drop them RVMs for cash buyers. But
I do the same thing. I RVM them and email them, and I text them too. I smash them with that thing. They're like, man, you're serious. But I always put a commission in there that they're going to get. I don't let them try to think about it because they don't know how to think, right? So I'm like, you're going to get 2,500 if you sell this for 65 grand. I get an offer by Friday. And it's way more than they would normally get, right? It's like 50% more on the commission, but I don't care. And I'll pay their broker direct or I'll pay them their LLC. I don't care. That's not my problem,
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Talk about a few more ways that maybe no one's thought of to sell our deals for a little bit more money. You just talked about finding new buyers that way, which is an excellent technique. What other ways would you say you're using to sell your deals for more money? Because I think a lot of people have seen their deal count start to decrease a little bit. So you want to grab as much as you can.
I think that you should build your list as big as you can. Nobody builds buyers list. Everybody only talks about sellers. I've been talking about buyers lists for the last 10 years because I think you need as many buyers as possible. I think you need to hit them every which way. I always talk about that stupid program I use called Textedly, and it was $10 a month. Now it's like 30. All my friends told me who signed up for it, but people can sign up to get your text alerts so you don't have to worry about email. But I still have like a 10,000 person email list. I'm paying $80 a month and I only get, however many opens when I'm sending out wholesales. It's a low amount. But I still do that. I do the RVMs. I do all that other stuff. But most of the time what I do is I think I just do better marketing than my competition. So I'll put the house on a Carrot site. Can be any site, but I've got the Carrot site, so why not use it? So I'll go and do a video. I'll do a nice 3-minute video. I usually won't talk during it because I'm going to talk and say things that they don't want to hear. So I just do super HD video, right? Just put it on YouTube, nothing big. Throw it on the Carrot page. Then I'll text that deal out without any links to anything, just the address and the price to try to get them to call me back, the people who sign up for texts. Then I email it to everybody. I send it out on Facebook. Sometimes I'll do Facebook lives from the property.
Wow.
I just do every single thing I can because, you know, my average wholesale price is a lot higher than the other people in my neighborhood. And I'm not bragging. It's just, I work harder. Maybe I should do twice as many deals, but I feel like I would rather, I'd rather make twice as much on less deals. I'd rather make twice as much on more deals, really. But what I'm saying is pickings have been slim here, you know, and I'm not picking up houses doing $2 and $3 grand deals. I want 5-figure wholesale deals. So if I'm only going to do 30 deals a year, I want them to be big and fat. I don't want to do 60 of them that are small and be transactionally based, because I've done that before too. Buying and selling 70, 80 houses a year from the banks. That's 160, 180 transactions. You're wearing a skirt and you're doing transactions all day. You know what I mean? Like you're doing paperwork all day. You don't have time to sell. Yeah. And I look good in a skirt.
You know, some of my earliest conversations with you, probably a year and a half ago now, are exactly what you just said, doing less deals for more rather than more deals for less, right? Not trying to run faster for slim margins. And so that's why I asked you there. But it sounds like you're really hitting with each deal. You're going text, RVM, email, sometimes live, and you do a walkthrough video for each one. Is that what kind of video that is? Yeah,
I just do a walkthrough, and then I go to every single meetup I can get to, and I seriously, this is no lie, I print color flyers, just one side, because, you know, I'm cheap, so the back's black and white. It's just my business card on the back, but I do color flyers with all my wholesale deals, maybe some that are already sold. I just want it to look like there's 8 or 10 on there. I do it on legal paper. I literally walk in, and I drop them off at every one of these meetings. I say hi to everybody. Sometimes I stay, sometimes I go, but they always think I'm everywhere. And then I also promote everybody else's groups. So the day of the meeting, when I'm going to somebody else's meeting, even if they don't like me, which is hard to believe, I'll be like, hey, I'm walking into Josh's meetup right now. You guys should all be here. It's at 1234 Main Street. Why aren't you guys here? There's a bunch of investors, whatever. And then you're like, God, I hate Dylan, but man, he promotes my group. How can I be mad at him? Because they can't get away from me, you know. And if somebody wants that wholesale house, like I'm going to hit them, you know.
Absolutely. You're one of the guys, I mean, we're coming up on the backside of the show here, just a few minutes left. You're one of the guys that I know that is really, really putting a conscious effort into building a network, hashtag the network, around you. The other guys like in Phoenix, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is something that's building bigger than yourself, bigger than your company, bigger than just your friends. Tell us a little bit more about what the overall goal is there, and then maybe how it relates to buying and selling more deals, because that's what it seems like to me. You just built this awesome ecosystem.
Yeah, so my big goal was to not be, I don't want them to come to the Josh or Dylan RIA, right? So we changed it from the name of a RIA. I'm not the guy on the front of the stage most times. We call it the network instead of being a county or a city, because newbies will be like, oh, I'm not going to the Baltimore RIA. I'm scared to go to Baltimore. Or I'm a DC guy or whatever. But if you call it the Maryland Real Estate Investor Network, then they're like, so this must be for all of Maryland. And like, we're Metro Detroit, you're Metro Baltimore. Most of us are in metro areas. So that almost makes sense anyways. So I wanted to get that name off there. I don't want to be known as a RIA anymore. And I loved RIAs. I mean, it's a big part of my life still, but the name just isn't like cool a lot of times. Everybody talks about meetup now. So I just call it hashtag the network because the name's way too long. And we have multiple meetups every single month in different locations. And I have different guys or girls who are the head of those meetups. And we don't charge any money. So I'm putting money into this thing and I'm not taking money out. But at the end of the day, I get to see who everybody is. And I usually attend most of my own, you know, the meetings for our group. And everybody who walks in the door, I'm getting their info. We're hitting them more, you know. We have our own Facebook group, and it's not really big, but it's totally focused on Michigan. And there's a little bit of a learning component to it, or teaching component, but there's no mentoring or anything like that. We're just down there trying to help new people, because new people are the ones who blossom into old people like us, right? Guys who have been through the wars. And then the guys who've been around a long time, they don't want to watch the podcast. They don't want to hear about the new stuff. They don't have to, but they're going to throw their deal on there or go live from their house and try to sell it, right? So that's my main goal, is to like be the hub of all real estate investing, where people are looking in Michigan for either learning or looking for deals and that kind of stuff. And I just get to slide my own into the mix, right? So I just put my own in the machine. And then the ones I do have trouble selling because they're not sexy or exciting or big back ends and they're just rentals, which only like smart investors want to hold rentals, not the new guys, then it just goes along with it. But to me, the big thing is like, I'm just given a lot more, way more than I'm taking. So sometimes good stuff comes from that. Sometimes it's just work, but there's just, you know, there's a lot of power to having people know who you are, and I'm never asking for nothing.
Never asking for nothing. I love it. All right, awesome. Last question here. What are you seeing in your market since maybe even Corona that has started to shift, specifically in terms of lead generation? Is there anything that's working great now? Is there anything that's really turned down now?
I think like everybody slowed down on texting during COVID because people would see it as insensitive. I'm like, hey, if you don't want to sell your house, don't get mad at me. But, you know, I'm also not going to fight, right? I'm not going to fight about it. So I think that there's more leads than there were. I think people are sitting in their house. They were super cocky. All those houses that were 200 that used to really go for like 175 and they're in this overblown market. Reality is what it sells for. So sure, it's true right now, but that could come down and deflate really quickly. So I think that it's just really hard to, I know that it's hard to get into houses because a lot of people don't want you in. So if I'm going to buy a rental from you, Josh, and you're just sick of your old rental and you move to Florida, your tenants won't let me in. We can't make them let me in. So now I got to buy it sight unseen and then sell it sight unseen. And it's in like a, you know, halfway decent neighborhood. So I think it's slowed down a bit, but I talked to the owner of our title company a lot. And, you know, the April was definitely a dip, and we got hit hard here in Michigan. We were like number 3 or 4 in the country for COVID. Right. But April, there was a dip, but February and March were good. And this month right on track, just like always.
Nice.
So yeah, so it slowed down a bit. And I think, you know, I don't like to pontificate about what our president's going to do, but the way that he is, hopefully there's going to be some kind of stimulus or whatever, maybe even just for refis or for new purchases when all this stuff is over, because we are in an election year and like, you know, you need this economy to keep moving. So I think mortgage rates, and they're already low, is ridiculously low, right? But maybe they knock them down another point or give you like some kind of a discount. Remember how they did the stimulus, 8,000 or something when you buy your first house?
Right.
Something like that might happen, you know?
Definitely. Well, dude, I appreciate you. We've gone 30 minutes. Don't want to go over on time. Dude, I really appreciate you. Give me like a COVID elbow bump or something like that. Dude, I really appreciate you and your wisdom, man. Guys, I hope you go out and kill it. I hope you can take some of the gold nuggets that Dylan has dropped on us and make it happen in your own markets. I appreciate all you guys for being here, man. This elevator is going up. Peace.